starting to get dates. Bring them on. Go ahead. What are your thoughts there, Mo?
Yeah, I mean, normally that is the thing. It'd be good to be bad, but for the Browns, this is technically a good season for them. The scariest part for me is the fact that, there's talk that the Browns could possibly, depending on how they finish out, name Greg Williams the permanent head coach, and I think that would be a disaster for that football team. You just look at last week when he decided to accept the penalty instead of the good extra point, and that could have cost them. It didn't, but it could have. So I think that's the scariest part of this Browns team for me at this point is if, there's thoughts of possibly naming Greg Williams the permanent football head coach there in Cleveland. I think that would be a gigantic mistake. I think he would be going to be a great defensive coordinator for them, but I don't think that's where the Browns should go moving forward as a head coach.
We're going to get into the NFC playoff picture here in just a moment, but you have the unique part of the country, if you will, where you get to cover two NFL teams. Chicago Bears is another team that you pay a lot of attention to. The Chicago Bears coming into their own right. Let's talk about their spot. What are you guys talking about with the Chicago Bears? Obviously, a big win against the Vikings on Monday. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, for the Bears, obviously their defense is phenomenal. They've got a decent running game, but I think it's can Mitchell Trubisky step up and make big plays in big moments and not turn the ball over as much as he did last week in order to keep the Bears competitive as they move into the playoffs. 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions in a game is not going to cut it in the playoffs. So I think the big hope for the Bears is that Mitchell Trubisky can help them win games and not add to them losing games. Just continue to develop and hopefully not continue to turn the ball over so much.
I did have that right, didn't I? Was it the Bears? The last game the Bears played was against the Vikings and they won. Did I have that right?
Let's see. They beat the Rams.
The Rams. Okay, I'm sorry. My fault. Either which way, it didn't change the question. I don't know why I had the Vikings in my mind. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking about Green Bay and Vikings. Anyway, Ed, bail me out here. Pull me ashore, sir. Go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this: Who thought, back in August that the Packers and the Browns would both have the exact same record with a tie on their schedule too? Browns and Packers were both 5-7-1, and who saw that coming? Not me. But Mo's right. If the Browns aren't careful, this little winning streak that they're on is going to lead to Greg Williams being hired. And I'm always a proponent of a head coach being an offensive-minded guy. I think the way this league is heading with points, they're really handcuffing the way defenses are allowed to play. So I think to me, if I'm an owner, I'm hiring an offensive coordinator to run my team to be the head coach, just because that's just kind of the way I feel. Is just that you got to learn how to score points, and they have a young quarterback in Baker Mayfield that you want to develop. I think Greg Williams would make a great defensive coordinator, and I like Freddie Kitchens. I mean, Mo. Look what he's been able to do. I don't think he's ready to be a head coach by any means, but I would make Greg Williams my D coordinator if he would have it. But you never know; he might get offered another head coaching job if the Browns don't choose to hire him. But I like the way the Browns are trending. Clearly, if they find the right guy to be the head coach, they could certainly make a real strong playoff run next year with the talent they have on that team. So I like the way the Browns are playing, and the Packers, they have a big game against the Bears. They're kind of still sniffing around in that wild card position in the NFC. They certainly need help to get there at 5-7-1. They have 3 teams ahead of them in the hunt with 6 wins. But it's not out of the question. They made that coaching change, and they came out of that coaching change with a win. So maybe that coaching change will spur them on, and they win their final handful of games here and see where that gets them. It's a long shot, but it's still a shot. And if you're the Bears, you're playing well. You like the way that defense is playing. They held the Rams to 6 points last week. Now they're going into, I believe that game's in Lambeau. It'll be a good test, but that defense is awfully tough to crack for the Bears, and we'll see if Aaron Rodgers can do it.
Let's get into this NFC picture talk while I still got both of you on the line. We'll start with you. Obviously, New Orleans Saints have opened the door wide open. They hold the tiebreaker over the Rams. Rams have got a matchup against the Eagles, and obviously because Ed's on, we're rooting for the Eagles, but you got to be excited about what the Rams are doing as well. And then, of course, as Ed mentioned, and you mentioned the Bears, and you've got the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Panthers, the Eagles, the Redskins, all in the hunt, if you will. But certainly, it looks like it's going to come down to the Rams winning the NFC. We would think anyway at this point. So, Mo, as you look at the NFC playoff picture, what are your thoughts?
I mean, there's some jockeying, at the bottom of that the playoff picture. I mean, to me, at this point, I would hate if I'm a team at the top of the NFC to see the Seattle Seahawks make it in there. I think they're playing pretty good football. This defense has really come around. You look at all the losses this defense has suffered over the past few years, and it's pretty incredible what they've done this year. And Russell Wilson continues, minus the last game, continues to be pretty amazing. So if I'm a team at the top of the NFC, the last thing I want to do is see the Seattle Seahawks, I think, make their way into the NFC playoffs.
What are your thoughts, Ed, on the NFC playoff picture and how it's shaping up?
Yeah, I agree with that. The Seahawks they're playing well. They have 8 wins, and right now, if the season ended, they would be in Dallas for the opening round of the playoffs, which would be, that'd be a fun matchup. I'd like to see that defense go against Zeke Elliott and Amari Cooper. But yeah, the Seahawks, they're looking good. But then you look at that 6th seed, that's still way up for grabs. The Vikings are in position right now to be that 6th seed, which would bring them to Chicago if form holds right now in the opening round of the playoffs. But, the Vikings are going to be tested. They have to go at least 2-1 over these final 3 games. And I think one of those wins is going to happen against the Dolphins this week. They should be able to beat the Dolphins, so that'll strengthen that positioning. And then you look at the teams in the hunt. The Panthers haven't won a game in, over a month. So I don't think you can really count them. The Eagles, here we go with the Nick Foles show again. It's a lot different situation Foles is stepping into this year than he did last year. Last year he stepped in and won the game at the end that gave the Eagles the NFC East. Right now, the Eagles need to win out or at least go 2-1 and get help to try to sneak into the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. And the Redskins, also in that mix, who the heck knows who their quarterback's going to be? Mark Sanchez or Josh Johnson or Mo or Tom or whoever. I mean, whoever it just isn't going to be good enough. So right now the Vikings are in the driver's seat. That they just need to kind of win a couple more games to lock that down. So I expect that they will, and they'll probably be the 6th seed. And the Seahawks really can't move a whole lot. They're not going to catch the Rams. They're 3 games behind the Rams. So right now I think things are kind of set in the NFC. As far as the playoffs go, the AFC, completely different story.
So some quick thoughts, guys, why we still got you on the horn here. Mo, the 6 teams that are sitting in the playoffs right now are likely to be the teams that finish that way. As Mo mentioned about the Panthers, which sucks because my granddaughter is the biggest Panther fan in the world, and she's got some Panther stuff coming her way. The Panthers, though, have 2 games remaining against conference leading, one of them against the Saints. The Eagles, as he mentioned, as Ed mentioned, Mo, they going to have to go forward without Carson Wentz, and the Redskins are leaning on Josh Johnson, who was recently drafted by something called an AAF. What are your thoughts?
Well, the quarterback issues, especially in the NFC East, are sad to see for teams that we were hoping to make a push towards the playoffs. Nick Foles, at least the Eagles have Nick Foles to step in for Carson Wentz. Like Ed said, it's a much different situation this year, but someone have to feel a little bit bad for the Redskins, who were playing pretty well, had a decent record, were leading that division, and then all hell breaks loose, and they lose not 1 but 2 quarterbacks to the broken leg. So, that part alone is sad to see, because you like to see teams make that final push for the playoffs, and unfortunately we're going to see 2 teams in the NFC doing it without their starting quarterbacks.
Ed, if the standings hold, the Vikings and Bears will play for their 3rd game this season during the wild card weekend. And they also, I believe, and one of you guys correct me on this, I think they end their season with the Bears. So it's a very good possibility that they could end their season with the Bears and start the playoff season with the Bears. Am I correct on that, Ed?
Yes, I guess that's their final regular season game, Vikings-Bears.
I believe
right?
that's the case.
Yeah,
I believe that's the case.
I know we saw that. I think we saw that a few years ago with the Eagles and the Cowboys. They played each other in the final regular season game. Cowboys won. The Eagles went to Dallas in the opening round, and the Cowboys won again. So, I don't know what to make of that. Obviously two teams that would be very familiar with each other. So you just line up, and whoever executes best is going to win that game. So, I don't really like it. I don't like seeing a rematch in one week after the team's just played. But it is what it is, and you can't avoid it if that's the way it shakes out.
Well, the other wild card game would feature another rematch, the Seahawks visiting the Cowboys as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Mo, if the Rams finish with second seed, the only team the Rams can't play would be a sixth seed. Like the top seed plays the lowest remaining seed, meaning that the Saints would get the play on the wild card weekend. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the Saints playing at home is a scary thing to think about for any team going in there. Drew Brees hasn't been phenomenal at all in these last three games, but at home, the Saints always seem to bring it. So when you look at the task of going into New Orleans, into that dome, and playing that speedy offense, to me would be something I wouldn't be looking forward to. I think the Saints will definitely hold serve at home their first game in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know you got to go here in just a moment, so I'll just throw some games out here, and you just kind of give me your thoughts. You've got the Packers at the Bears and the Seahawks at San Francisco, and the Cowboys at the Colts. What are your thoughts on that trio there?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the Colts. The Colts and the Cowboys. I want to see how that game plays out. The Cowboys, obviously, they're red hot, winners of 5 in a row. I mean, it was a month ago when everybody was speculating, when Jason Garrett would get fired, and now here they are, 8-5. Haven't lost since then, and the Colts need this win. I want to see how they react at home. You hope that they don't feel too tight and too tense like maybe they were 2 weeks ago when they lost to the Jags. So. I'm really looking forward to that game. And then, that Seahawks and that 49ers game, I just think the Seahawks are playing real well right now. And I just think that the 49ers won't be too much of a match for them, but you never know. I mean, it's in San Francisco. It's not in Seattle where they always seem to play well. So, San Francisco could have a shot, but the way Seattle's playing, I just don't see them losing this game. And I forget the other game you mentioned there, Tom.
I mentioned Seattle and San Francisco, Green Bay, and the Bears.
Oh yeah, Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay. And the Bears. Aaron Rodgers. They still have a very slim chance. The Packers, and it's at Lambeau. So, division game. They fired McCarthy. They played well in the first game without McCarthy. If they can keep it up and upset the Bears, then maybe they sneak into that. Get a little closer in the wild card race. It's a long shot, uphill battle, but obviously the Packers are still playing for something, and I expect them to show that.
Well, we got a couple games today, and I know you got to go, Ed. But where can people find your masterpieces, sir?
Yeah, you can hit me on Twitter at Kratze, Kracze, or you can check out my site that I do with the Sports Exchange. It's the www.footballmaven.io/Eagles.
So it's going to be interesting. And for today's game, go Jets, go Broncos. I'm just saying. Thanks, Ed. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, guys. Yes, sir.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Mo, real quickly, I know we've only got you for a limited more amount of time as well, but today's game, we've got the Houston Texans against the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns and the Broncos. I tell you what, I mean, just because of the AFC South and just because we need to build that strength and that padding, but can the Jets win at home against the Houston Texans?
I mean, anything's possible. I just, it took everything the Jets had last week to beat the Bills. It's hard to see Houston coming off a loss and, knowing that they need to continue to win to see them losing to the Jets. Anything's possible. I don't see it happening.
What about the Browns and those?
Well, I mean, the Browns come in riding high as they continue to win football games. The Broncos are tough at home, and it'll be interesting to see Baker Mayfield and how the Browns adapt to the altitude, but also a running game that's been pretty incredible for this Broncos with Philip Lindsay. So I would say that as far as the Colts go, I think you want a Browns victory just because you want Denver to take that last nail in the coffin to knock them out of playoff contention for a wild card in the AFC.